welcome to Together Unlocked. I can't believe it's the 6th of May already, but here we are. I'm Ju Gosling, also known as Ju90, and we're in Canning Town, East London. With me today is our chair, Julie Newman, and we're going to go over to Birmingham for some introductions and a bit of audio description.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I'm Robin Surgeoner. I'm Business Director of Together, an artist known as Angry Fish. Josh will introduce himself in a minute, but today I am sporting clean grey, white hair, lovely glasses, one day old unshavenness or growth even, and a Billy Bragg t-shirt, actually a green t-shirt with 3 images of Billy Bragg kind of over the last kind of 30 plus years, I guess.
I'm Josh Surgeoner. I'm a PhD student, primarily based up in Sheffield. Obviously, I'm back at home at the moment because of the lockdown. I have a particularly unruly fringe at the moment, I think, given the challenges of not being able to go to a hairdresser. And I'm wearing a blue and white kind of staticky patterned Superdry t-shirt that has a racing wheel with wings on either side of it.
Oh, we won't even ask what anybody's wearing on their bottom on the virtual sofa. So my
Star
camera,
Wars pajama pants.
Too much information. So I'm Hugh Gosling. I'm the artistic director of Together 2012 and your co-host. I'm 57. I've got short red hennaed hair with black glasses, and today rather a sort of bright green tennis ball covered top. I remember wearing it to Wimbledon and almost seeing tennis players stop in their tracks. But it's nice to have things a little bit cheerful in these coronavirus days. So, Julie, do you want to introduce yourself and then we'll talk a bit more about the programme?
Hi, I'm Julie Newman. I'm the chair, as Ju's already explained. I've got silver and gold hair, dark rimmed glasses, and I'm currently wearing a very plain navy blue t-shirt.
I wasn't so sure about the very way she said very plain, because of course it's one of the ones that I've just bought on account of the fact that Julie's moved into the studio for the duration of lockdown so we can continue to work. Together Unlocked is brought to you by Together 2012. We're an organisation based in the East London borough of Newham, which was the main host borough for the London 2012 Paralympics. We're led by disabled artists and we're taking forward the cultural legacy of the Paralympics. So, in more usual times, we run an outreach programme year round for anybody who can get to East London. It's completely free, aimed at disabled people and whoever they want to bring with them. And we have a whole range of different art forms. We have a lovely graffiti banner behind us, which some of our artists made in 2014, back with a company called Graffiti Light, or no, Graffiti Life, sorry. And we very much appreciate that. And that shows what some of the different things we do, from drama, music, filmmaking, photography, dance, literature, poetry, and all sorts of other things. We also run an annual festival in Disability History Month for everybody, but led by disabled artists and companies from all over the world, as well as East London and the rest of the UK. This year, the festival is going to be bigger than ever, but it's going to be entirely virtual. And we'll talk a bit more later and in other programmes about the opportunities that we're offering to disabled artists. We're all artists who are living in isolation. We're all wheelchair users, and that makes for a very convenient virtual sofa. Do you want to add anything from that well-known East London borough of the West Midlands, Robin?
Actually, we today is that the sun's back out, and been feeling quite creative actually, certainly in my head, which is good. This has got a way, it's going to start oozing its way out through the creative pores to inflict on other people in the near future.
And how are you coping with him inflicting these things on you, Josh?
Well, I've kind of taken the opportunity of of being at home to dig out all of the kind of random toys and things that you accumulate as a teenage boy that you then don't take with you to university. So we've been racing remote control cars around the garden and all sorts of things. So I'm managing to distract myself with toys mostly.
Yeah, and of course with Emily here, or EJ as she prefers to be known, short for
How
Emily Jane.
How old are you?
She's doing the school, but also because she's learning to play musical instruments, we're having lots of time with clarinet practice. And a friend recently gave her an electric violin, which has just had its first airing, which is all right. Actually, it sounded okay. I mean, thankfully she can play. She's got grade 3 violin, so it's not too scratchy.
Yeah, the twins at the bottom of the garden do enjoy their recorder practice, but I've never actually known them make a huge amount of progress. However, the message of this program is it doesn't matter how good you are, it matters how much you enjoy doing it. We have a very comprehensive join in from home program. It's on our website. The address is crawling across the bottom of the page, but it's www.together2012.org.uk. If you just click on Join In From Home on the top menu, it's got a whole range of items and different activities, lots of them based on our outreach program, which we call our clubs program. So for each club, there is an activity. We also run in more usual times family activity days in the school holidays. So we've got some of our favourite family activities. And we've also got a specific Youth Together program because although in usual times everything we do is inclusive of all disabled people and people of all ages, young people have often said to us they need a space of their own. And I think Josh is probably going to be able to relate to this when people have said, if we're at home, we're not even allowed control over what we do in the kitchen and what we eat. And, we like being with people of all ages, but we want some space of our own. So I know Josh has been getting involved with some of the new Facebook groups and Instagram that they're setting up. So he's going to be reporting back on that in the future. And we're also hoping that Josh, as our young producer, is going to be working with EJ and Eve Smith, who's a young actor who was guesting on the programme a couple of weeks ago. And we'll soon have some content from under 18s because I think people often tend to forget that there's quite a lot of young people living in isolation as well. And it must be particularly difficult for them because, I think it for all sorts of reasons, not least the fact if you're trying to cope with education and school. I mean, your PhD's been very much interrupted, hasn't it, Josh?
Yeah, unfortunately. It would have been a year in March. So we just kind of finished the first stage and everything was planned and set and ready to go. And then it all kind of hit the fan, so to speak. So yeah, it's all been kind of jumbled and juggled. So we're doing some things in the meantime. And then at the moment, we're just kind of, much like the rest of the world, waiting until we can get back to normal, really, or as close to normal as we can to be able to kind of carry on. But yeah, that's probably going to take a little bit of time.
We've been very happy to take advantage of that, recruit you into the programme. And also, you have some games of knowledge which we will be sharing later. Is there some second problems at your end at the moment? I can hear a bit of an echo at this end. So
It's just come in. It's just getting a little bit of echo too. There was a tiny bit of feedback whistling through, but we still can hear you perfectly well.
Oh, well, internet gremlins again. Well, this might be a good time. On one of the things we always do on a Wednesday, apart from coming to Josh to talk about sport and gaming, which we'll be doing about 3:30, is we have a think about the outside world. When you're living in isolation, particularly in the East London borough of Newham, which obviously are quite crowded, we don't have the opportunity to see that much outside. So we send off our assistance dog with a camera strapped to her back. So each time, of course, she's only going into the same very small yard, but we do think that there's things that change from week to week and month to month. So we're going to have a look at Precious's latest film. And here we go. So the little black scruffy dog is coming through my kitchen with the other little black scruffy dog, which belongs to me, and through the clap onto the green decking, which appears to all be rotting away nicely. And let's have a look in through the door. Let's have a look at the little mini herb garden. Is there anything interesting happening? No. Have a look towards the sand pit, which is now terribly grubby. And the film is freezing a little bit, so we've definitely got gremlins. Back along the decking. Have a look at the shed. Not a great deal going on. Yeah, that kitchen door needs a good coat of paint, but it's certainly not going to get that for a while. Background the same way again. Have a little sniff around the plants. Have a look round the bin. Yeah, composting nicely. Just have a little stop and think there. Back past the sandpit, back past the other dog. We're having quite a lot of freezing on the internet here, so I don't know what it's like out there, but she's decided that she's been filming long enough to get a treat. So through the flap.
She's become very.
Are you still with us?
So here we are back in the studio in Sutton Coldfield, hoping that everybody is happy and continuing to enjoy Together 2012. Unlocked on live on your internet, on internet as they say, and hi there.
Yeah, so it's up in Sheffield on internet.
Here somewhere. Josh, I think you might have something running the sound of the recording at your end, if it's possible to switch it off. But anyway, what's the nature like in the West Midlands, Robin?
Well, our garden's gorgeous. When the sun's out, thankfully we have we luckily we have someone who can come and cut the grass, and he's still doing that because he can stay outside while we stay inside. It's really lovely. It's really, it's kind of weird. It seems like it's a juxtaposition that the world is in this kind of calamitous state. Such opposites, that the world is in such a poor state in terms of human health, and yet outside is just full of life, full of colour, full of animals. Ever so few lit often at the moment because the cat likes to bring them home to EJ.
I think it's probably more full of life. I think at the moment there's lots of stories around kind of animals venturing back into places they haven't been seen for however long because of the kind of urbanization, but then actually everyone's now not there or kind of inside, so these animals are kind of coming back, which is nice.
Yeah, I think the lovely thing in London is blue skies, but we've got, I hope, a guest about to join us from a very lovely sunny, well, I don't know if it's sunny, but certainly a lovely fresh air place, which is our virtual writer in residence, Penny Pepper, who's down in Hastings. And we had a virtual writer in residence before coronavirus. So how about that? She was already virtual, but she was coming in to a live feed in our poetry group. So let's see if we can get Penny into the stream. Hello, Penny. Can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. How lovely to see you. So, how is the weather in Hastings?
The weather here in Hastings is beautiful, sunny, bright blue skies, and warm. It's a perfect day for going out to the seafront, which sadly I can't really do. I've been cheeky once. I did go and it was very quiet. Didn't see anybody, but it cheered me up immensely.
Yes, I do wonder how they can actually stop us going out for exercise after lockdown's eased for everybody else. I'm saying to Julie, are they going to tattoo your date of birth across your forehead? So she's got 1947. What do we get? Do we get V for vulnerable?
Well,
Not that I think there's any safe way to go out in Newham at the moment and for some time to come. But I think we always used to say the British talk about the weather when nobody else does because our weather is so changeable. But now it's that also that thing of, well, it's so interesting if you can't get out there to at least look at what's happening. And as long as
yeah.
you view through the window, I feel very sorry for people who've only got a view of the outside wall opposite.
Yeah, and if I can just, I don't know how well this will work, but I wanted to share a picture of my garden, which I will describe anyway. But if some of you can see that, it's like a marguerite, which is chrysanthemum family, and oh, that's a bit better. It's a chrysanthemum, um, or a marguerite, and already, because I do feel that the weather here is a little warmer generally, it's got a fuchsia which is already flowering. I think that's quite early, and a red salvia at the back, and that's in a large grey flower pot. But you didn't ask me to describe myself, Jew. Shall I do that?
Oh, yes, I certainly should have done. I don't think I could do you justice.
So I'm pretty much my usual peacock self. I have red hair mixed in with some grey. I've got my hair in a high bun with a red hairpiece and a white lace bow. And I'm basically in black and red with a necklace on that is made by someone I know called Etsy on Flighty Piece. Supports small businesses, and I love to do that. So, and I've got Lakshmi on here because, in general terms, Lakshmi represents um, community abundance and community wealth. So I like to celebrate that using her archetype. And I'm in my sunny room. It's a Victorian conversion, so I've got huge high ceilings, and in my lounge there's bits and pieces of you can see my 50s cabinet, which is to one side of me, that I call Betsy the Kitchenetti, and on the other side, in the background, shameless plug, my memoir First in the World Somewhere is standing up near my globe. So I hope that gives a good picture and paints the visuals of where I am.
Yeah, I think that's a lovely picture. So we'll come on to talk about your work. I just wanted to say for anybody who's listening to this thinking, God, I don't even have a balcony, they're being so unhelpful. One of the nicest bits of green I've had in my house recently is some mint that was just ordered as fresh herbs with our supermarket drop. So if you're in isolation and lucky enough to get a supermarket drop, as we are, they are selling fresh herbs which you can then repot. I always find, as with our family activities, that the old takeaway tubs are marvelous for that kind of thing. And surprisingly, although I haven't had a takeaway for some time, we do have a lot of takeaway pots here. Another thing that we've done with the family activities is just the old-fashioned mustard and cress, which of course you can order and get delivered by seed, and just that little bit of indoor growth at the moment. We used to with the clubs, because I've got spider plants at home, and of course, they're always dividing. So we used to decorate pots and plant the little bits of the spider plants and give them away. But again, I wonder if anybody who feels like they've got an abundance of plants, if you just stick them outside your front door for people going past on exercise, I think everybody's really appreciating a bit of green at the moment. But
I think you can buy cut flowers really cheaply. I know not everyone likes it, but I've got some gorgeous pink tulips that I got with my online delivery. They just cheer you up. Even daffodils, like £1 a bunch from Sainsbury's at the moment, they will really cheer you up. And I back up everything you've said, Drew. It's great to just touch with nature in whatever way is appropriate for you.
yeah, it might just be lying back and looking out of the window and trying to block the view of everybody else around you and just looking at the sky. But tell us more about your memoir before you come on and tell us what you're doing at the moment.
Well, my memoir is first in the world somewhere, and I was very delighted to do a reading for Together. I believe that one was at the library. It was at the library, wasn't it?
The gallery at the Beckton Globe Library. Now,
Yeah,
was that 2018 or 2017?
17. It was part of my tour that went with the release, the publication of the hardback.
Is that
It's
still available from Unbound?
available everywhere, and the ebook is now available as well in all formats. It's basically because Unbound at that point was part of Penguin. I love going to look at it on Penguin. I never, in my wildest dreams, as a younger woman, thought I would be published in an umbrella sense, umbrella company. But to see yourself on a page with the Penguin logo is quite something. But I do feel, and we can talk about this on a different occasion in depth, but just this issue a lot of disabled artists have, which is getting through the very weird world glass ceiling where we're only allowed to be in a niche, and that has stood in my way to some extent, where the PR I had wasn't very good. They didn't really know what to do with me because I wasn't writing a sad tragedy or a misery memoir, and so they've delayed publication of a paperback, which obviously I'll look forward to. And it's just a shame it didn't get reviewed. If anyone out there would like to review it, to either be used on my press releases or on Amazon, you can just go and do a one-line review for me. All those little things help. And obviously my passion is to push the disability story. And by telling my rather colourful and varied story from when I moved to London to my second marriage. It's about a 15-year period. I, I know I had really unusual life, but I hope it's a story that's engaging with a universal message. And what more can I do, Ju? You've always supported me. I've sold books directly. But often people do not know where to put a disabled artist. They either still try and push you into health, um, or as I've joked in many places, that the book was being stocked in libraries in social care and sociology. Very interesting to think how we fight back against that.
Well, I think we'll have plenty of time to chat about it. I mean, I'm delighted to tell viewers that Penny's going to be joining us on a regular basis on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday is when we would usually have our pop-up poetry club. We would usually have a weekly workshop where we get round, have a cup of tea, read other people's poems, write our own. So it's a really good time to be talking writing techniques, and regular viewers will know that we talk quite length and kind of and come back to subjects about how we work on different things. We've talked a lot about film and photography recently. We've talked a little bit about dancing, and we've talked about songwriting and lyric writing. So it's a really good time to come on to that. I think it's an art world thing as well. I know they say you can only be in one box in the art world. So there are people who are astonished when they discover Yinka Shonibare as a wheelchair user because he's a black artist, and you can't be a black artist and a disabled artist. And I think my own, because I work in a kind of cross areas. The Arts Council described me as a combined arts artist, and indeed Together 2012 as a combined arts organisation. But I just think of it as I work in different areas. And I certainly think there's a lot around gender, sexual orientation, and so on in my work. But because I'm a disabled artist, I can't be involved in anything that's to do with women artists.
And
So
also,
I don't think it's even just writing or yeah, sorry, Robin.
I was just going to say that actually, from my experience as a just athlete, a Paralympic athlete, you also weren't expected to be an artist. It's like you can't be a sports person and an artist. And I think that really confused a lot of people because they weren't expecting you to have interesting things to say other than about sport or have political opinions that you could put into creative frameworks and stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of, that was one of the barriers that I always faced because I was actually an artist before I was an international athlete. But yeah, there were the swimming that came first, in terms of making headway in life. Let's put it that way.
And I think there is also in a broader context, Joe, there is interesting to hear you say, you're kind of multi-platform across multi-arts. Well, I have that a little bit. That first of all, I'm from a working class background, and that's very on trend. But they still don't know what to do with women who have a range of areas, creative areas they work in. So, people will try and say to me, "Are you a poet? Are you a novelist?" I'm all of those things. And if a man is doing that, it still seems much more acceptable. So we can't be like Renaissance women, where we have actually a few things we do, and we try and develop um the approach to do them well. And I'm lucky that I have had a poetry collection published and my memoir and a short story collection, but I just feel there wouldn't be so much niching, as it were, for the classic, the sort of middle class white male non-disabled blah. It's like we have to fight for that, and then you've got the issues around being disabled. It's really hard when I don't know if any of you I can imagine you have heard about where you have to have a peg for your story. They need a peg to pin it on, and I know Laura would our lovely Laura would know about that. So my book launch wasn't huge because I'd been really ill and seriously ill 10 days before my book launch at the Royal Festival Hall, which was great. But from that, it's now like, well, how do you put a hook? What's the story to peg it on, to relaunch it? And we could talk about that, Ju. I'm hoping to do a relaunch just to look at bringing it to people's attention again, because there's no rules that says you can't. But it's the same for many of us. I do feel that some artists, some disabled artists do get a bit stuck, but also it's fear, and I absolutely recognise that fear. One of my passions is to try and encourage other disabled artists who are emerging to love, to sort of learn to love themselves, to get around that, where you almost feel like you can't come out of your safety zone. It's fine if that's all you want to do, if that's like as I say to all writers that I mentor, that if you write for you, that's fine. That's fine. You just enjoy it. If you want to improve, I can give you tips and techniques on that. If you want to go out there, be published, get books out there, you have to play a certain game. And sadly, I think some artists fall down there. They won't submit work. And if you want to be published, you have to submit work. So that's one of my big passions, to nudge people and say, I think there's some in the poetry group, Ju. I hope that their confidence is building.
And I think that's a really good point, to just pick a couple of those things apart, because we would really encourage everybody to be creative. I mean, and I think, we've talked in the previous episodes about one word poems and so on, but don't assume that you can't. Don't assume the sky isn't the limit, because I think that's what we've seen with people coming to our clubs program, not really got any qualifications, not got any confidence, don't really sort of feel confident in their reading and writing. And yet 6 or 7 years later, what they're doing is quite incredible. But if you do it for you, I think that is the most important thing. And this is such a good time. If you've ever thought, particularly about memoirs, and I want to talk about all of your books in the next couple of weeks, Pen, but I wanted to start with the memoirs, partly because this is a really good time for people to start writing about their own lives, and to keep diaries. I know you've been doing a video diary, although you're moving on to doing something else now, aren't you?
Well, it became physically very difficult, and I'm sure we could have a good exchange about that, because technology is there to do it, but it wasn't very accessible or helpful to me. So it became too much of a chore, and it was making me anxious. And I've realised that I'm quite good at being live. Obviously, I've done a lot of live work in my career anyway, so I'm going to be doing a short live on Twitter on Fridays. It's going to be called Live Penny Fridays, and then a longer one on Facebook at the moment. And my profile is public, but I will try and move some of that onto YouTube. It's where I've got my, most people to benefit. But I do want to talk about some of these issues there and try and get to the bottom of the kind of technological changes, because I also felt, and this is a point with lockdown, what do you say after day 40? It was like, I felt like going back to the beginning, and I still haven't had officially any PPE from my social services, no direct support. There has been moves that you could now call a number, but they're still experiencing the same as everybody else. There's not enough supplies. I got a bit sick of it, and I did mention this live on my Facebook slot last week, but I've got a poem called "Don't Waste Yourself, Save Yourself," and I could actually make that word exclusive for together. I don't think it would be ready for this Friday's, Live Penny Friday on Facebook. So I may do that next week, or at your pleasure, Ju, really. But it is about that I'm now seeing people get very anxious, getting dragged down into ridiculous Facebook arguments. It's flooded with conspiracy theories, and inside all of these arguments, disabled people feature very, very low in priorities, or not at all. So I would say, don't waste yourself. And I'll share that poem.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. I mean, I think one of the points I wanted to make is, these are historic times, and disabled people are not really visible, and those of us in isolation, it's one of the reasons we have this project, so we can document and we can look back kind of on a weekly basis. How were things? How are they impacting in different ways? But I think, can you just remind us, Penny, because I want to remind viewers, we don't operate on a bank holiday because we don't in real life. And this Friday is a bank holiday for VE Day. For anybody who hasn't really noticed that May has happened, even, we would have normally had a bank holiday this Monday, but it has been delayed for the VE Day anniversary. So we have a lovely 3-day weekend. Usually on a Friday, we have a piece called Something for the Weekend where we recommend things to watch, and we'll be putting Penny's thing up on a regular basis. But what time is it, Penny, before we move on Twitter and Facebook?
It's 5 o'clock at Facebook. Oh, sorry, start again. 5 o'clock on Twitter. And that's only about, because I do it live, it's best to keep them short. So that's about 5 minutes. And then on my Facebook personal site, which is just Penny Pepper, but for the broadcast, which is about half an hour, people can ask me things and whatever. That's about half an hour from 6. And that proved very a lot of fun and very interesting last week. And I've promised at people's request I'm doing reading a short story. I just wanted to say about the diaries. I keep diaries a lot in all different sorts of forms. But it might be worth people looking out there if there's any stuff with their local museum. Hastings Museum is doing literally a line a day type approach, which is a good aim. Even a line a weekend, but it might be interesting to see if there's a partnership there. Is Newham Libraries doing anything, or because it is important, and we must make sure the disability experience gets in there in all its great variety.
Absolutely. I'm going to move on now, but don't go away, Penny, because
I won't.
Reading us out with a poem. It's that time of the week where we have our virtual Paralympics. We do not have any live sport at the moment. So instead, we race clockwork toys for the right of our teddy bears to wear in our case, a gold plastic medal. And in the case of the Surgeoners, one of the many gold medals that they have kicking around. So this week's teddy bear in Canning Town, I'm not sure actually has a name. We might have to name him on the spot, but I think he came back from either a work trip to Switzerland or a work trip to Austria. So he's dressed with a grey felt hat with a little floral band and a little flower and some feathers, which no doubt the cats will eat before the end of the week. And he's got sort of little shorts and braces and a sweet little red felt jacket and white shirt on. So, Julie, what's he called? Yeah, we'll have a name for him in a minute. So, what have you got there, Robin?
So we actually have a double agent who's come over from the London 2012 team, and this is Wenlock. Wenlock was one of the
he was the mascot for the Olympics in 2012.
Yeah.
And then Mandeville was the Paralympic mascot. And for those Wenlock.
So for those who can't see Wenlock, he's a one-eyed creature, kind of cyclops, but a rather friendly-looking cyclops. He's grey with some orange streaks in his head fur, and he's wearing a white T-shirt with the word Wenlock across it, and he has 5 bangles, which are the colours of the Olympic rings. So they are red, green, black, yellow, and blue.
Well, that's interesting. We have London 2012 representing Birmingham 2022 against.
I say, and so, the medal we're racing for from this end today is that's really shiny, isn't it? Hold on. This is the real deal. This is a proper, actual Paralympic gold medal from Seoul. So if you've never seen one, if I can work out where my screen is. Oh my God, I'm not very good at this. It's all. There we go.
Gold medal.
Okay, there we go.
Right, so are you the red racing granny or the blue racing granny?
I'm sticking with blue.
Blue. Okay, yeah. Here we go. And just for a bit of audio description at the beginning, we've got a slightly different racetrack. They are now racing along a carpet at the end of the studio. So you can also, along with me on my knees, setting them off, see various cardboard boxes of pieces of artwork that should have gone down to the storage unit but hadn't by the time of lockdown, and a load of bookshelves behind me that are over the staircase. Obviously, not very accessible. So here we go. Without further ado, our two little clockwork racing grannies with their helmets on in their little power chairs are going. No, I know. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to play it again when I've been able to take what's known as the crawler off. And
I do hope there's not going to be any change in the result.
there won't be any change in the result. Unfortunately, the internet gremlins, whereas they will usually let us switch off join in from home, are allowing it. So let's see if it will play again. If we all come back into the screen and I can get it.
Oh, there we go.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
It blue.
Victory
Yes.
is ours.
Yes. This medal stays here, thankfully. You know, I've got my. I need to do this non-reversing screeny thing. All right, there we go. Well done, Wenlock. You are a complete star.
Edelweiss. So yeah, Edelweiss doesn't have his gold plastic medal. Now tell me what the score is, because I'm absolutely convinced you know.
3-3.
3-3.
Yeah.
I knew you'd be getting it. I was going to suggest that Josh did some with the remote control, but then of course you'd be able to control them. Whereas once I've raced out Granny's, because I've got no short-term memory, I don't have a clue, so I can't even give you something by accident. So
Sorry,
we are losing sound.
Yeah, Penny, you're not actually in the stream at the moment, but I'll bring you back in a little bit. So over to you, Josh. You're going to give us our usual weekly roundup on virtual sport and gaming.
Yeah. So, I mean, very briefly in terms of kind of lockdown getting to people, I realised it got to me last night when in a kind of forage for food and not a lot, I was dipping custard creams into a tub of custard, which is when I realised that we maybe need to go and get a bit more shopping. No, kind of moving on to we'll do sport firstly. Like you said, there's kind of not a huge amount of sport going on at the moment, but there is some kind of sporting news around various different kind of world championships and things being bumped back a year in order to kind of accommodate clashes with the rearranged kind of Olympics and Paralympics. So swimming has moved back a year. The para-athletics world championships have moved back because they were due to happen at the end of August and September in Japan of next year, which would be slightly awkward because it's kind of exactly the same time that the Paralympics are due to happen in Japan.
I don't know how it'll clash with the Commonwealth, all of these games.
Yeah, so lots of things. I mean, speaking of, kind of Birmingham 2022, various different events and things are being pushed back into kind of very tight turnarounds and things. So in terms of what's going to happen there, I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see, I guess. If anyone is a football fan, as of about 5-3 this afternoon, the Bundesliga has given the approval to continue the rest of their season without any fans. which is the German Football League, if you're into German football. And then kind of the final thing on sport in a kind of desk laid plans. Last week, the IPC launched their weekly update. The IPC being the International Paralympic Committee, launched a kind of weekly update newsletter, which comes out on a Thursday, which is the perfect day for it to come out, for us to read it the day after our sports segment, which is kind of discussions around kind of what's going on in the world of sport. But one of the things they had on last week's was a section around kind of mindfulness and dealing with change from Dr. Deborah Alexander, who's an IPC board member. And within it, she quoted, or there was a quote from the section that she wrote that I think, we always talk about kind of making things for yourself and just doing it for fun. And kind of within her quote around kind of mindfulness, she said, the best action at this point is to do something that brings you great joy and something that leaves you with a sense of accomplishment and or fulfillment, which I just thought was a really kind of nice sentiment. But then just kind of none on the time, quickly just jumping into gaming. Emily and I are still kind of pursuing our effort through Lego DC Villains, which we're having a great time on. And they've just remastered a game that came out in 2009, which I was a big fan of as a teenager. So I've been playing that this week in kind of wonderful new high definition.
Cool.
Which is it's a remaster of one of the Call of Duty games, which kind of as a teenager I was a big fan of, and I think kind of re-experiencing the joy and frustration of that game when you play it on the very hard difficulty and die quite a lot.
And the realism is astonishing. I mean, not the dying bit, obviously, but just how they capture movement and the physicality, the physical movement and stuff is really, really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of quite immersive, and even you're playing some of the action sequences, and you're sitting there and your heart rate's going because sitting on your settee but running through forests being chased by bad guys.
So there has to be one advantage of being forced back with the parents is the broadband connection and the TV. I can't believe it's quite that fast in student digs.
I'm lucky. When I was an undergrad, I had horrendous internet connection, because I lived in the middle of nowhere. That I'm quite lucky being in Sheffield, that it's kind of quite a major city, so I'm able to get fairly good broadband, thankfully. But if it ever is too slow, I can go to university and steal theirs because theirs is ace.
It's a really big issue we're aware of for a lot of disabled people out there, and indeed a lot of local people in East London. I've just been asked to join a group because, people are so aware that if you've got no broadband and indeed no smartphone, at the moment it's just impossible, and people aren't even getting the right information. And I'm sure that's happening up and down the country where people are really sort of saying, look, we know you can't afford mobile phones and broadband, but we are going to do something about it. It's such a shame that government policy they had back in the noughties that everybody should have broadband, every home should have a laptop and internet connectivity. It's like the whole world's behaved as if we have. And yet, in terms of over 70s, I was seeing yesterday, there's a very large proportion have never been online. Now, that's fine if you're living in a household with other people, but right now I think it must be very, very difficult. But I think, as with all these things, each week that goes past, the sort of certainly the local efforts become much more organised and better resourced, and it looks like the government is, however slowly, also proceeding in the right direction. So I think we can only hope that things will continue to get better, and in the meantime we're going to have a lot of fun having a 3-day weekend holiday at home. I think all of us are in a situation where we're able to deal with lockdown better because we're at home through circumstance, and particularly all of the barriers. We're at home much more often anyway, which is why we happen to have homes that are set up with studios and home working facilities, and we're able to do this show. So, what we hope is in a few months' time, there's going to be lots more disabled people out there who can actually not just access things, but make things. Because I was quite shocked to see on some research that the only thing that's dropped in terms of internet use is people creating their own content and uploading it. And I would have expected it with things like TikTok and Instagram to be very much the other way around. And I think, again, that message that don't feel it has to be perfect. If you like something and you're proud of it and you want to share it, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think the idea that people are becoming more nervous of sharing their creative content is really, really sad. It's great that things are becoming more professional, but as we've said with filmmaking, it's not critical. A good idea is a good idea, a good story is a good story. And there's lots of things that we can do on this show to help people improve their technique, including now, of course, with the very wonderful Penny Pepper, who we're going to bring back in a sec. But sorry, Robin.
I was going to say, I actually think that some people are worried about showing some happiness because there are lots of people who are unhappy, and they don't want to kind of be, oh, it's great, I'm having a lovely time. So that there might be a little bit of an element of that in there, that it's not that they're being less creative, but are actually perhaps.
Oh no, this over the last year. It wasn't. It's not since coronavirus.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So it's just been a real trend, and like I say, I would have thought as Instagram became more popular and TikTok really took off, that people would be, because if you've only got to upload a 15-second video and you can do it through an app, that is a really easy thing to do. And if you've only got to do a photograph and do it through an app, all of that's much easier than uploading stuff onto things like YouTube. So yeah, I would have expected a very different trend. It will be interesting to see how much it reverses with the lockdown. But I mean, we certainly are getting a lot less sent in at the moment than we would have hoped. Because again, before we finish, I just want to do the usual. We'd love to see your artwork, whether you're doing one of the activities in the Join In From Home program, or you're painting rainbows, or it's something completely different or original, or indeed not very original, but you're very proud of it. We would love to see it and share it on social media. Some of the challenges that we have in the Join In From Home program also lead through to screenings at our film festival, which we were talking about on Monday. And again, we'll be coming back to these subjects with opportunities for professional artists as well as opportunities for everybody. Penny Pepper, are you still there in Hastings? You are. So
Go. I love the little countdown. Here we go.
yeah, we hear you when you're live, Penny. So yeah,
Yeah,
there that is.
I just wanted to add that I did a little share to Twitter. So hello to my lovely friends on Twitter, because I know some of you are watching, and please share and support Together TV. It's a marvelous thing. I did put a thing on Facebook, but I don't know whether it was quick enough. But now I wanted to read you. Should I go now with my poem, Stu? I don't want to.
Let's just wind up, and then we will have your poem as the final treat to stop people
Okay.
speaking off too quickly. I just wanted to say we always put a recording of this show back up by about 7. In the meantime, you can access the raw live recording on YouTube. But we go live for about 5 minutes before the show starts, just so we can program all of the things into the website that allow you to watch it on the website and not have to go to YouTube. So what we do with the recording is we download it, we cut off all of that black, and then we stick it back up again with slightly tweaked sound. And you'll see that those recordings are there going right back to the 30th of March. There's a sub menu where, particularly if you don't have masses of data or good broadband, you might prefer, and that's the highlights. And the highlights include the separate individual videos, things that people have sent in, and also links. So anything that we've mentioned in the program today that has a link, That link will be on the Together Unlocked highlights page, which is just the second pull down one from Together TV. So once again, we won't have a show on Friday, but we will be back next week with 3 shows: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 to 4. We'll be hosting as usual, myself, Drew Gosling, and Julie Newman from Canning Town, and Robin and Josh Surgener from Sutton Coldfield. We will have Penny Pepper, our virtual writer in residence, as our regular guest on a Wednesday. All of our regular items and lots of new things, including new programming coming over next week from our drama company, Act Up Newham. So we'll say goodbye before handing over to Penny. Is there anything you want to add in Sutton Coldfield?
Can I just say, we'll meet again. That sort of weekend, isn't it? Have a good one from us all as well. Do take care in the celebrations. Don't get upset. Just stay happy.
Yeah, and I think I should also flag up, if you look on the Together highlights list or go straight to YouTube and look for Act Up Newham's stream, they did a very wonderful video of their very own version of We'll Meet Again for lockdown, and that is well worth seeing. So that's goodbye from London. What about Sutton Coldfield?
Yeah, just wanted to super briefly highlight a website called behance.net, which is BEHANCE.net, which is a kind of social media website run by Adobe, kind of for artists and by artists, that has kind of lots of inspiration, but also kind of live streams and videos of artists kind of making their work and talking about their work. And on the live streams, there's a chat function to kind of talk to the artists. That I kind of got a notification about, and I thought it was something really interesting. So I'll send that link across so it can be put up. I think that's something we can talk about more kind of in the future.
Okay, well, so goodbye from Josh.
Yeah, goodbye from me.
And actually, yeah, I'm going to go and create a playlist for we're doing a VE no contact street party on Friday afternoon. So I'm going to go and actually put some songs together that kind of feature Dover and Meeting Again, mixed up with some more modern stuff. So goodbye from me, and have a fantastic VE day.
Thank you. And of course, we're going to nick that list and put it up next week. So thank you for that, Robin. And finally, and thank you again for joining us. Welcome to the team, Penny Pepper. We'll be hearing from Penny.
Here we go. Sunflowers. You make me believe yellow is more than the cliched sun, a panoply of explosive nuance, the stroke on each petal, a twist to the yoke through spectrums of possibility, darker ochre and spark of lemon. I ache to stroke the rays, maybe lick the mustard, feel what you felt, dance my fingers into the crevices, banana curves and velvet slicks, breathing, showy things. Thank you. That was Sunflowers from my collection, Come Home Alive by Penny Pepper, and that is available from good bookshops and on the wonderful Burning Eye Books webpage. Thank you, everyone.